Hello, everybody. Welcome at the Inspireli live stream, live talk number 10. And today we have a wonderful topic of modern African architecture. My name is Mariana Vahalova, and I am the Inspireli Education Manager, and I will be your host for today, as usual. We haven't chosen this topic without any purpose, because we would like to show how Africa shined at Inspireli Awards, at the 6th annual Inspireli Awards, which was last year. And we would like to also get to know more about the current African architecture, because it is so different. Us coming from Europe, from Czech Republic, we don't know much about African architecture. And we think it could be very interesting to learn a little bit more. So today here we will have several of our jurors of architects from Africa, and we'll also have our board of advisors who are the finalists from the Inspireli Awards. So first of all, let's introduce the topic and let's see how the Africa shown in the Inspireli Awards at the 6th annual. Let's have a video, say more than words.
We launched Inspireli Awards in 2015, and in that time, nobody knew anything about architects, universities or students in Africa. And I don't know when it happened, but several years after, I heard the students of Africa are scared to compete against international students community. It hit me hard. But now, in the 6th annual, we have finally a global winner from Africa, and it's you, Maha Aziz from Egypt. Congratulations, my dear, and together with me, the entire continent of Africa.
I'm happy that the world's largest student competition, Inspireli Awards, has a winner in Africa. Congratulations to Maya Aziz. I'm Gatlaho all the way from Botswana. Thank you.
Bien à toi et merci à vous tous. À très bientôt. Bye bye.
Congratulations to you from sunny South Africa.
Hongera sana Maha Aziz kutoka DRC.
هي الطالبة مها عزيز من مصر. ألف مبروك.
Many congratulations to Maha Aziz.
À cet effet, je souhaiterais porter toutes mes chaleureuses félicitations à Mawa Aziz depuis le Burkina Faso.
Many congratulations to Maha Aziz, and this is me all the way from Kenya.
I wish her best. I wish her all success.
À très bientôt pour délibérer sur de nouveaux concours. Je vous dis au revoir. Merci.
Tinoti makoro koto makuru Maha Aziz.
Gelek beba ma gbe chade muremba na yoyo muremba koskaji.
Mafuna bwino apite kwa Maha Aziz kujogera kuno ku Malawi.
فخور جدا بأن أكبر مسابقة طلابية إنسبايرلي أوردز فاز بها شخصية عربية أفريقية. ألف مبروك مها عزيز من ليبيا.
ومبروك لمصر، مبروك لأفريقيا، وتهانينا للطالبة مها عزيز.
ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ oríire fún Maha Aziz láti Nàìjíríà.
Yiti Abase Namibia. Siabon.
أنا فخورة إن اللي كسبت السنة دي Inspireli Awards أكبر مسابقة طلبة في العالم من أفريقيا. مبروك يا مها عزيز من مصر.
Olumba maningi utimwa wina oyo mulumbe uzwa Zambia.
Pongezi nyingi sana kutoka Tanzania ziende kwa Maha Aziz.
Os meus calorosos parabéns a Maha Aziz do Egito por este grande feito. Deus o abençoe.
Un gros félicitations sorti Cécile et pour Maha Aziz.
ألف مبروك لمها عزيز من تونس.
Ngimbongele futhi ngimhalalisele Maha Aziz ngiseswatini.
My name is Victor Lionel Miguel. I am the president of African Union of Architects. It's an honor for me to be part of the biggest student competition in the world. African Union of Architects is a partner of the Inspireli Award. It's a big challenge to win,
but not impossible. We made it once, and we can make it again. So, I challenge you, yes, you, African student, to be part of it. Be a winner. Be part of the Inspireli world. Thank you very much.
This is really amazing that we can celebrate Africa here today. So I would like to introduce a wonderful list of guests we have here today. We're here with me. So first of all, one of our jurors and architects is Miss Marwah Alvefeli, who is the architect designer from Libya. She is one of the jurors and architects at Inspireli Awards as well. Second guest here with us is Vincent Atim, who is the architect all the way from Seychelles Islands. That will be very exciting. Third guest today here is Mr. Vadagri, who is an architect and researcher scholar at Kyoto University in Tunisia. Also, all of them are our jurors at the Inspireli Awards. The fourth guest today is Anthony Musevukashit, and he is an architect designer at Crayons Design, coming all the way from Congo. Last but not least, we have Ms. Mabel Mudombo, who is the university lecturer at National University of Science and Technology in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. Here, lastly with me, we also have Karel Smejkal, who is the co-founder and the president of Inspireli, and he's the wheels in motion behind all of this idea. So welcome everybody. I am very happy that we have you here, and we're very excited to see your designs. So first of all, Karel will tell us a little bit more about what's coming. So I'll pass the word to you, Karel.
Thank you, Mariana. Hello, everybody. I'm really proud that we are meeting today against people from different countries. And I'm very, very excited whenever we can meet together our entire community, architects, professionals, theoreticians, and students together, and we can share our knowledges and our experience. And today, because we have great occasion to celebrate Maha Aziz, the first winner from Africa continent. And hi, Maha, I'm really proud that you are here together with us. And the topic is today to focus on Africa and modern African architecture. So I think that today it's not about me. I would like to give a place to our guests. So let's enjoy your information and your beautiful pictures.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karel. So we are curious to hear what our guests have in their portfolio. They have all prepared a few of their realizations, and now is the time for you to show us and to tell us what you are working on. We are very interested in hearing what are the specifications maybe on working in your specific country, because we have the whole continent from north to south basically represented here. And I'm sure it's very different than building in Europe or somewhere where it's very cold. So I would like to first ask Marwah Alvefeli, please can you take the word, and the direction will play you your slides. And if you can tell us a little bit about what you are working on and maybe what were some challenges or anything interesting you would like to share.
Hello, this is a great honor for me be part for your conversation series. And it's also great honor to be African architect who talk about culture of conversation, construction through their project. And as creative members Inspireli Awards, I would like to be active in this field. Please, can you give me one slide of the show? One.
Let's have the first slide, please. There you go. Marwa, do you see it?
Yeah, no.
If you look at the Live 4K host.
Yeah, it's okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah. African architecture is diverse as the culture Africa. Recent discoveries of stone structure in Southern Africa are accrued to be earliest human-made building on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
The need vertical architecture construction is linked to the economic and population growth of the city, which reflect the strength and prestige of the economically and commercially. The idea of a project and a mixed-use development as a creative distinctive toward future, while all service and needs and emphasize the importance of the center. Service in towers in commercial and residential and administrative. This is all service for mixed-use development. Can you give me the next slide of the show, please?
The next slide. Mm-hmm.
Multimodal terminal in Benghazi Old Harbor, embodied of sprite of social unity in the various dimensions of the road's heritage, vocabulary achieving the idea of saving memory and reviving heritage through bringing about architectures is culture and respect the original designers and working on the consistency of buildings and framing the culture of each city.
Mm-hmm.
Formulating and integrated vision for future each city of center of enter the area sustainable development. I included with extensively from architect Hassan Fathi. Modernity does not necessarily mean volatility and change is not always for the better. Thank you for listening to me, and it was a great opportunity to be the architect who represents to the culture of African architectures is many countries and the context of Africa in general.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Marwa. Thank you kindly. It's a really cool design as well. Please stay with us. We'll have the answers and questions section a little bit later. And there might be some questions from our board of advisors. The next one, I would like to invite Vincent Atim from the Seychelles to show us a little bit what you are working on, what are your specifics in the islands, and tell us more about it.
I'll start by saying good evening because it's past 6 o'clock here in Seychelles. Mm-hmm. It's 6:15, so good evening, everybody. Indeed, it's a great honor to be invited to come and talk to all the students or everybody here on the panel about what we do in the Seychelles. We obviously are a very remote, small group of islands in the middle of the
I think we're having some difficulties with internet probably at the Seychelles. It looks like Vincent has disappeared. So we'll give him a few moments. Hopefully he will come back. It started really interestingly. I was really excited to hear what's happening in the Seychelles at the moment, other than the dinner time. Vincent, are you there? There might be some shortage. Let's see.
I think that it's time maybe to postpone him a little bit and to switch to another guest, and he will join us later.
Let's do it. Yes. So the third guest today, we have Mr. Vadagri from Tunisia. So welcome, and tell us what's it like in your country? What's the culture and architecture connection like there?
Hello, everyone, and as Vincent said, good evening, because while I'm representing my country, Tunisia, here as an architect, as a young architect, unfortunately, I'm not in the country anymore, and I'm been conducting research since last year in Japan, here in Kyoto University. But I'm still, as you know, a proud African architect, and I'm always willing to share what our continent, specifically my country, is having to offer. And also, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to thank all of you for hosting such an interesting panel of people to talk about an interesting topic, which is modern architecture in Africa, and also take advantage to congratulate Maha Aziz for being the first African winner of the Inspireli Awards. So let me start by addressing the title, African Modern Architecture. While we always address the architecture in Africa as African architecture, it is very important to mention that while it's different from addressing Occidental architecture in Europe, for example, Africa has 54 countries, and the architectural scenery there is different, not only in topological, geographical, and also socioeconomical aspects, but also very different in climate as well. So the word African architecture itself is not very representative for what's happening in the continent. So being privileged to have worked in a architecture firm in Tunisia back home for 3 years as a project architect and eventually as a coordinator, I was able to work on different projects on the continent itself. So I was able to see a little bit what such differences between the practice of architecture in different countries in Africa. So I chose today 3 projects from 3 different countries that I collaborated on, and hopefully I want to share some of the approaches / concepts different from each country, and to try to shed a little bit of light on the differences between the different approach of architecture in each country and how we approach each project depending on where it was located. So I want to start with the first project. And the first project is actually in my home country, Tunisia, which is a project of building 6 villas in a vicinity of an existing luxurious hotel, a 5-star hotel. So the project was to build a luxurious villas, and the aim was to sell these villas to very wealthy clients. So as you can see, so from the beginning, the facade of the building, this is one example of one of the villas that was built last year in the coastal side of the capital city of Tunis. And as you can see clearly, the style of the architecture used as being modern is still also similar to what we do in the Mediterranean area, as using very, very subtle colors and very neutral architectural composition. And the aim here is not to disturb the surroundings. As you can see, there's a lot of scenery happening, and the villa itself is facing the coastline. So what we aimed here in this project was to focus more on the surroundings and to frame the scenery, while also being a little bit of respectful to the Mediterranean style, using a lot of open space and glass to frame the nature, and being neutral while using very subtle white volumes and colors. So this is an example of what we will interpret modern architecture in the Mediterranean area, specifically in Tunisia. This is one example. The second project that I want to mention, I want to talk about in the second slide, is a hotel project that we started doing the studies for 2 years ago, and the construction is going to start soon. And this project is a hotel complex, is a business hotel actually, in the country of the Republic of Central Africa. And as you can know, here we are going to a completely different context, as Central Africa is a tropical area, thus that has a rainy season, and the context there is different. And as you can see, while we are aiming here to build a business hotel and to aim for a modern appearance, we kind of wanted to keep this a little bit of touch and a little bit of tropical sense to it. As you can see, the use of modern style facade and very subtle lines, we added a little bit of like warm color to the facade just to like keep the vibe of the tropical color palette. And at the same time, as you can see, there were like a little bit of sunshades on the facade. Thus is used to add some like alternatives of light and shadow, but at the same time, it plays the role as a rain shed for the heavy rain during rainy season, not to hit on the glass facade, thus and hinder the visibility of the guests inside their rooms. So as you can see here, like we play differently on the volumes of the facade compared to the first project, which is here is a must given the context and the difference in the climate here. The third example that I want to talk about is actually a experimental project in the third slide. And this project is not actually meant to be built, but this was like our proposal for a competition. And this was meant to be a cultural center in Senegal, which is a sub-Saharan country. And here the difference in climate is very clear, as you can see from the picture. And you can see as the dry terrain. And here we don't have a problem of like heavy rains. We do have rains in Senegal, but we don't have a lot of problems in rain, but thus we have more problems of warmth and of very like hot weather. So what we were trying to do here, like despite the project being a like open, like without any like how to say boundaries around, we tried here to play on like some of the aerodynamics of the project, shaping the project as a cylinder where we can direct colder air to the inside of the project while expanding the warm air to the outside through the gaps on the facade, while also using local wood and locally shaped organic wood, not industrialized, to keep those like organic shapes of the wood, as we needed those like gaps between the wood and the facade for the warm air to exit the project. So as you can see, these are three different projects from three different countries in Africa, while all of them look different and use different techniques according to each of the project context. And here I wanted to share with you guys to emphasize on the fact that even though we address African architecture as a whole, it is very different from region to region. It's very different from country to country, and it's very, very important to like address each country and each context differently in order to actually achieve sustainable and durable concepts and projects. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is amazing. Thank you. This is exactly what we were discussing before. We were saying that Africa is so vast, so big, that it must have different levels of what you need to count with. So this was really great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Okay, it looks like we have Vincent back, but let me see what we have prepared in the directions. I think we would go now with Mabel Mudumbo, and then we would come back to Vincent because we've changed some order of what we will be projecting. I hope that will work, Vincent, even later. Wonderful. So Mabel, I would like to ask you, and if you could please share your presentation about what is specific for your country.
Thank you so much. My name is Mabel Mudombo, lecturer at the National University of Science and Technology in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. And just to introduce you to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is a country with about 16 official languages. And one of those languages has got about 5 dialects. Just to show you that Zimbabwe is wide in terms of culture. It's really a lot of different cultures in Zimbabwe. So you find that also the architectural types that you find in Zimbabwe are quite vast. So what you would find is different eras as well of architecture, ranging from traditional architecture to pre-colonial and postmodernist approaches to architecture. So you find that coming from an educational background, we're talking about proposals or projects that try to harness all these aspects of design. So I'll ask the first slide to be shown up there. What you see there is a proposal, a project that we were working with our students on a hotel in Bulawayo. So Bulawayo is characterized by Ndebele culture predominantly. And so the idea was to borrow elements of culture, elements of the environment, because in terms of African modern architecture, you're looking at the main pillars, I would say, would be the climate, would be the materials, and would be the community which shapes the culture. So there you find a sustainable high-rise structure where you are looking at building orientation, instead of having high-rise structures that are all glass, because Zimbabwe is falling under the tropical climate. You have very hot summers and dry winters. So you find that you're trying to have a building that responds to those climatic aspects, the high temperatures, a lot of sun that we have in Zimbabwe. So you find that design is trying to address environmental design issues, to have a building that is very sustainable in terms of thermal regulation, the thermal mass of the building, the walls, and all of that. So you realize that the windows face on the southern side or the northern side to actually avoid too much overheating of the walls that can cause uncomfortable interior environments. You can go to the next slide, which is slide 2. Yes. So again, a climatic responsive design. This proposal was in a place called Cholocho, which is very close to Bulawayo. And in this particular area, there was a lot of flash flooding, and we had to propose schools and clinics for the community there to curb to manage that flash flooding. And this coincidentally, we proposed this design just before the cyclone Idai, which the eastern side of Zimbabwe faced during that time. So it was just after that the cyclone Idai came, yet we already looked at this kind of proposal. So what it basically is a raised structure that will definitely stay, which is supposed to be robust during flooding and still address climatic aspects in terms of the environment there, which is characterized by very hot summers. They've got higher temperatures in Cholocho, and it's quite dry there. And so you've got this building that should be able to cool itself, the deep eaves that provide shading to the structure, and is very much in touch with the local architecture there, because it's quite a traditional community, and you're kind of bringing this urban vibe to that community, embracing all the gable kind of roofs that they had. So you're having to blend in with this very traditional architecture there, but producing something that is quite modern. We can move on to the next slide. So this project is also another renovation project within Bulawayo, where we're looking at one of the most famous Makosi theaters, which is a hub for cultural art, cultural activities. You've got dance, you've got music, you've got visual arts in that particular facility, but it has been run down. And what we were saying to the students is to propose a renovation project to that Amakosi Theatre. And so you see that elements of chevron patterns, which is kind of very characteristic of culture in Zimbabwe, being incorporated into a cultural center. You look at even the color, the red colors being incorporated in that building. So this was kind of like a showcase of how culture can really be incorporated in modern African architecture. We can go to the last slide. Which this particular slide is a community project, which is an actual project that we undertook as a university together with Studio Mada based in Norway. And what we were doing is to create an environmentally friendly building using compressed stabilized earth blocks, a mix of compressed earth and a little cement. And what we have there is the involvement of the community. The community had a lot of input in the design of the building. The community was involved in the construction. There was training of the community there to construct that building. And that building takes advantage of the winds, takes advantage of the resources. They have a lot of sand there. So it was just a mix of clay and sand to produce those compressed stabilized earth blocks. So this was an experiment on the use of material, but yet very responsive to the climate of the place. So that will be my presentation on the various projects using material culture and material culture and climate to come up with very sustainable modern African architecture buildings. Thank you.
Amazing, wonderful. Yet another very variable. A lot of variables in all of those projects, and I love how you can work together with the materials and the weather. Really interesting, wonderful. So it looks like now we have Vincent back. So I would ask Vincent Ateem if you could now show us what your projects are and finish your idea.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Technology went completely pear-shaped. Sorry about that.
No. At all.
Yeah, back online. It's an honor to be invited here, like all my colleagues in architecture, and I'm pretty impressed by what they talked about. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be that impressive, but I'll give it a shot. Somewhere we're on a little island lost in the middle of the ocean, and we tend to look outwards. We have traditional architecture in Seychelles, which is very much built on stilts, working with the elements, the wind, the sun, and basically protecting the habitat of the island, but putting buildings in the habitat whilst it doesn't disrupt the nature, so to speak. And with modern architecture, it's a little bit different. It's more concrete, it's more tall buildings. And recently, I suppose I am probably one of the first architects who started introducing very contemporary and very modern architecture in Seychelles. Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people believe that I'm destroying the face of the country by introducing very ultra-modern architecture in the country. I would probably start with my first slide, please. Yeah, this building is called Docklands. It is a renovation building. It was a building that, it's not actually very old. It was built around 2002 in the Seychelles. And in its heyday, it was a very popular, very hip building with various different materials. They use a lot of wood on it. They use a lot of fiber cement boarding on it, a lot of louvering, various materials on it. And the building actually is quite, I don't want to say avant-garde, yes and no. It actually doesn't, the building is not on different levels for any other reason that it has ramps inside. You don't walk on a flat ground and then you go one floor through steps. Actually, you ramp from floor to floor all the way up. It's almost like it was made for people who are, I don't want to call it the word, but who are physically impaired is the word I want to use. It's quite interesting. And we were given this building in 2017 to revamp it because the building was tired. The materials they used on it were not conducive to the elements in Seychelles. We have pretty aggressive weather in Seychelles. We have a very aggressive sun. We are 4 degrees south of the equator. We're smack bang under the sun. We have the sea all around us, very aggressive salt spray, corrosion, and it rains quite a lot. We have very high humidity in the country. It usually ranges between 60 and 90%. Most of the time, it's 80 to 90% humidity. So you can imagine the materials get a real bashing from the elements. So when we design, as architects, just a handful of us in Seychelles, we have to be very mindful as to where we're designing it, how we're designing it, what we're designing. How do we sit in tune, in community with the elements that actually influence the island? So my first slide with the renovation of the building, I basically looked at it as a building that could have a completely different feel. Unfortunately, I did not give you a slide of what it looked like originally. It looks a bit ghastly, but I have come with the concept of the building. I cannot change the shape of the building. I cannot change the configuration of the building, but I can certainly lift it up. And I looked upon it as a bit of a lantern that is lit up at night, obviously. So it's kind of, I've clad the whole building around. I've used a lot of perforated cladding panels, and the perforations in the cladding commensurate or respond with the existing window openings on the building. So the more window openings you have, the bigger concentration of perforations, and the less you have, the less perforations there are. And then I've used the concept, the idea of it could be a lantern. So if I'm perforating the panels around it, the clad it to hide all the otherness of it and make it look cohesive, clean lines, modern, I have introduced lighting at the back. So I've given a night shot so you can see. For me, in my mind, in my technical, artistic mind, at night, it's a lantern that just floats off the ground. Hence, the dark graphite color on the ground to ground it, and then the light above, and it's about to take off the ground. And during the day, it has a completely different look. It's slick, it's smart, it's clean lines, straight. And then the idea, what I've done is on the first floor, there is a restaurant. So you just change the slide. There's a restaurant, and you can open all the doors. So you have a complete view of the street. But at night, when it's not functioning, you can close the whole restaurant, and that's it. And the building looks like a lantern floating. That much I will say about it. And we've used, internally, we have had a bit of renovation and conversion of an existing cinema into conference rooms. And then we have various shops and a cafe and other restaurants in the building. I'll move on to my next slide. This is actually what you can see is 2 blocks of flats at the bottom. And at the back, you can see a building under construction. It belongs to a very same client whose brief was to build something that's really modern, very contemporary. Again, at the same time, respecting the nature around, the boulders, the big rocks that exist, and also respecting the elements, sun, rain, wind, and also the vista that you get from that point. The block of apartments is up on the hill, and when you are on the terrace, you just have an amazing view of the Bay of Beauvalon. You cannot see the block of apartments from the road because it's high up in the mountains. And it's designed in such a way that, in an apartment, for me, when you are up, you're never in your bedroom, you are in the social quarter. So for me, social quarters in a house or an apartment is very important because that's where you live, that's where you cook, that's where you eat, that's where you go out for fresh air. So I've given ultra importance to the terrace, the front living areas. So when you're up, you're out, you're enjoying the view to the maximum. And the client had very specific brief. We live in the tropics, it rains a lot. The sun is very bright. And the client did not want to hear the sound of rain, which is very unusual because rain is very, it gives you a sense of warmth. It gives you a sense of wanting to cuddle up. It makes you go back inside you. It's a sensorial feeling when it starts raining in Seychelles. And you hear the pounding noise of the rain on the roof, but the client was dead against it. They actually did not want to hear the sound of rain. So the whole building is concrete, flat roof, with everything draining out in central downpipes so that we don't hear the noise. And you can see on the building, I've got visors around the windows to break the bright light coming into the building. And so they all are 2-bedroom apartments. They're 4-bedroom apartments. And at the back, They've got their main house at the very top. And we've used sustainable materials, sustainable way of doing things in terms that we have solar panels, we collect the rainwater, and the rainwater is reused in the house. So we've tried to be sustainable whilst being contemporary and modern as far as buildings go. And I've also maximized the topography of the ground, because the ground is quite steep, as you can deduce from the photograph. So we've used the underside of the undercroft parking. And so you can come in, park, you undercover, and then you can go straight up the steps and get to your respective apartments. So we've maximized the ground, maximized the elements, maximized the brief of the client to make sure the client got something that they really want from the architect. I'll move to my third slide without being too wordy, please. This one is my current project. It's actually a concept that I designed in the office. It's the building for the Seychelles Revenue Commission. That's a tax office in brief. And currently, all the departments are spread out all over Victoria and even in the middle of Mahe. So the government has come up with the idea. They've got this building where they want to regroup everybody back in one building. So this is a building of almost 9,000 square meters with underground parking, entrance floor, which is literally put a lot of vegetation to soften the building up or down. And then first, second, third floors. And at the top, we've got basically a glass building with a lot of elements in front. The building is deliberately broken in two because one building would look too heavy. As a matter of fact, if I may say, the adjacent building behind it is a very heavy, monumental building. And so in this one, I wanted the building to look light, airy, flighty, so that it contrasts with the monumentality of the building behind it. The building behind it is a conference room, and it's our main conference room and theater in Seychelles. And I wanted those two buildings to contrast each other. One looks heavy, monumental. The other one is modern, contemporary, flighty, and very light. And the reason I've used all those elements on the glass frontage, it is very reminiscent of a fish trap. Again, going back into the traditional way of fishing in Seychelles. It looks like a fish trap, but at the same time, it's a very modern and high-tech building. Again, I have introduced a lot of sustainable materials in there. We've got photovoltaic panels on the roof. So the building is it generates electricity, and both for air conditioning and for electricity within the building, using solar panels that completely cover the whole of the roof. We've collected water that is used for recycling, for flushing toilets. We've used that for irrigation of all the plants that are on the building on the ground floor. So we've used a lot of the elements, and also the glass that's used on it. We've introduced an element of UV reflection. So although we will have the shading from all the elements on the building, we also have introduced that coating on it that minimizes the impact of the sun. Because the sun goes from the east to the west. So the full facade you look at, it doesn't quite get impacted by the sun, but the eastern facade and the western facade get battered on. So we've kind of worked out to make the building look modern, contemporary. And as a matter of fact, I am presenting this building to the Cabinet of Ministers the coming Wednesday next week. It's already received lots of approval from the different ministries, but I have to present it to the Cabinet at our local White House, so to speak. And fingers crossed, we'll get the blessing of the whole Cabinet of Ministers, and we can proceed to start developing the buildings and the planning authority. So these are my three slides, my three buildings that I've been working on so far. Thank you very much. Very glad for the invitation.
Thank you, Vincent. That was amazing. Fingers crossed as well. Definitely let us know how it turns out, and hopefully we'll soon see it being built.
I will do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Again, a lot of really amazing information. So for those who have just joined our live stream or are watching this later, you are watching Inspireli live stream talk number 10 about the modern African architecture. And today we have here our jurors from the Inspireli Awards, the architects from different countries of the African continent. And we also have the board of advisors that hopefully will have some interesting questions after we have finished. But we have Anthony back. So hopefully now we can hear each other. We are having some difficulties with the technology, but Anthony, how is it going? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. We hear you just great. Thank you very much. So yeah, you can just ask the directions for when you want the slide to be played, and then they will play it for you.
All right, no problem. So let's start with the first slide, the one number 1.
Mm-hmm. Can we have the first slide?
Mm-hmm. All right, so basically what I'm going to do is just kind of an analysis of how I've personally observed the trend in African architecture based on my own country. All right, is this, all right, okay. So on the first slide, is that ready?
Yes, you can hear it here in the Live K4 little window. You can see the slides that are being presented.
Okay, so on the first slide, what you can see is actually, those are residential buildings. The first one has been built, so that's not a render, that's an actual building. I designed it right after I graduated. It was kind of a rushed project. The clients asked something specifically based on what is trending in the Congo. And what's actually trending is mostly sort of a mimic of the pre-colonial architecture that was left. And people are very not being very creative with the architecture. What they want is just a comfort and a little bit of kind of luxurious, luxurious looking building. There's a lot of that. The second one, though, that's something I tried a little bit to infuse some kind of element of let's say African architecture, but that was not done on I would say a structural or on an integral level. It was mostly a way of kind of decorating the building that looks a little bit inside like an entrance African. All of that is due to the fact that the client is not really interested into observing or asking themselves what could actually represent African architecture the best. I mean, how can I actually design, get something that says I am an African? We don't really see much of that. That's something I personally do as an architect. So I have been at trying to develop some concept personally. That's why I've shown the, we're gonna move directly to the third slide, the one number 3, with some sketches. All right, so having observed that there's a lot of kind of this, a lack of interest into exploring African architecture, it becomes something that I feel architects should themselves in Congo do instead of waiting for the client to ask you to do something in that regard. So personally, I have observed that there are a lot of architects on the continent that tries to do that. For example, Francis Carey does that, but on a very functional level. But I see few architects doing that on a experiential level, trying to see the way of life in Africa and see how the building can actually represent, not just represent, but can accommodate that way of life. So I use that case of a primary school to kind of explore some concepts which obviously are not just limited to Africa, but they are being explored in a sort of through African lens. So, for example, the concept that has been explored there is a school as an African village. When you look at schools in Congo right now, they are very formal, and lots of kids are really not excited sometimes to go to school because of a counterintuitive way that things are being school is done. And if we look a little bit back to how all African communities used to work, there was a lot of learning through everyday life. And I wanted to explore that aspect of learning by bringing a little bit of flexibility into the school without, of course, forgetting the structuring. That's why I used the concept of fractal development to ensure that there is a certain structure that is being observed. For example, the relationship between the public and the most private space, that has to be structured, starting by the public, which is more exposed to even the community, which opens up the school to the community, and the most private, which will be your school, your classes, which are very secluded from the community. But there is a middle space that's where those two meets, the semi-public, which plays the role of becoming the platform where the community and the school has a sort of dialogue. For example, I think, if I'm not mistaken, again, must be Francis Carey who explored that aspect. There was a library that he designed and conceived it as a place where you can have elders who, of course, are full of knowledge. They can come there, just like you put books in a library, sit and then talk to children. And that becomes a way of learning. Although you can use books, but you can also interact with elders. And that can happen in a library, excuse me. So those types of concepts, those type of way of life, those are the things I was mostly exploring. Of course, they're not done yet, but as long as we keep on working on them, we put them in our shelves, when the opportunity presents itself, you know what to do. So basically, that's the way I would like, architecture in DR Congo to go, to look at our way of life and see how we can now make architecture, accommodate that way of life, instead of just, taking what we've been doing, mimicking the same thing with just some small tweaks as we've done. Now, if you look at the last page, the one number 2, although I've said that we do mimic a lot of architecture, colonial architecture, we have, kind of naturally some spaces that are really particular to Congo. For when you look at the kitchen, for example, it's difficult to see someone who designed a house without having an outdoor kitchen, because there is a lot in our Congolese culture of cooking outside happening. And every time you design a house in Congo, you have to have that in mind. That is at least something I can say I have, I would say, seen people doing, and I can say it is particularly, African or even Congolese.
That is amazing.
I think I'll stop.
Wonderful. Thank you for a really great presentation as well. Everything is super exciting and interesting. For me, coming from, not from architecture background, actually, This is all very inspiring for me. Thank you all for wonderful pieces of your work that you have shared with us, with all the information and the background as well about your countries. I would like to open the discussion now. And if any of our board members of the students and former contestants at the Inspireli Awards have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and come in, or raise your hand there and wave. And let us know if you have any questions, or Kyle, if you would like to say anything as well.
Yes, definitely. I would like to use this opportunity to say something. I was listening to all of you, and I was a little bit in my dreams or in my mind. I was beyond of the exact things which were said, and I tried to make some conclusions from that discussion, and I made some notice that, for example, that when it was Marwa talking, I have noticed the word dynamic. Yeah, this is something what I felt in your speech, Vadag. You were talking about the context focus. Mabel was about the climate. Vincent about the contrast, and Anthony about the own concept. So when I make it together and think about the Africa architecture, I can say that it's about the concept, contrast, climate context, and dynamic. Yeah, and this is something what I really like to highlight some words, and then things about or let it maybe Mariana help me with the word. It's interaction from the context. Yeah, and I have questions, of course. I would like to start with you, Anthony, because when I met the first design of students from Africa, I was absolutely impressed that I saw an absolutely different style. And you mentioned that it's your way to find your own concept to present Africa in a let's say the base or natural base. So can you say something about how is your way, how to incorporate it together, the tradition of African culture into the architecture shape? Is there any of your theory how to or procedure how to do that?
Definitely. I think there's first of all, we have to look at the way of life of people. I think that's the key word, I would say, to not come with an agenda already when you want to design. But for example, if I go to a specific village, I have first to observe the way they live. That's actually what I mean to them. For example, the moment I understand the meaning of each element that we could use in construction to them, it's much easier for me to come up with a concept that can relate to that specific culture. And secondly, there's also specific indigenous, or should I say local rather, construction techniques that have been developed over ages that we also have to pay attention to, because sometimes those techniques are much more sustainable than what we have preconceived before. And maybe finally, I would say there is this aspect of synthesizing what we know, the modern knowledge, and to see how that can actually embrace the local knowledge, techniques of construction, and so on.
Really?
I absolutely agree. It's I think it's the same in our country. However, I feel that we are step by step losing our culture, and we are more global. The globalization is winning everywhere. Yeah? I'm traveling a lot, and whenever I'm entering any capitals in the world at the beginning, in the surrounding, there are the same kinds of buildings. And so I think this is to find the own concept and to correspond with the culture is really important to preserve. And maybe I would like to, because I'm experienced with our board members. They are very shy. So I would like to ask Tessarina, do you have any questions? Please open the discussion.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tessarina, and I'm currently in Malaysia. So I think Anthony answered some questions that I wanted to ask, and those questions relates to priorities of an architect when doing a project, and as well making decisions like which one, especially when it comes to client. And I think he answered that question pretty much well for that so far. So no question for me so far.
No more.
Yes. Yeah, because he's actually answered my question so far. Yeah. And if I may say it, I'm actually from Seychelles, so it's a pleasure to actually meet Vincent for this project. And totally everyone did like for the presentation themselves, they said so much that as a student as well, it has actually helped me and elevate me to actually progress even better during the course of my semesters. So thank you, everyone. It was very amazing.
That is great. Thank you so much, Sarina. That's amazing. Is there anybody else who would like to ask some question that has not been answered yet? Mm-hmm.
I think that Dana would like to say something. That's why she's here.
Actually, thank you so much for the informative lecture. I have just one question for Architect Vincent, if that is possible.
Go for it.
Okay, so was it like so expensive to use all the sustainable techniques in your projects? I mean, the advanced technologies in your projects.
Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite hear what you said. Could you ask the question again, please?
I mean, you said you mentioned that in your project you used like advanced technologies, like how sustainable elements are being used. So was that all expensive?
It is the capital outlay is actually pretty high to start with, but the long-term benefits of it far outweighs the very heavy initial capital that you spend on it. Certainly. For example, the third building that I showed, the SRC building on Special Revenue Commission, is a huge building. It's actually very light structure and with glass around it. And obviously having the sun penetrating and actually fighting the HVAC output within the building, using solar power to power the HVAC, meaning air conditioning within the building, is a massive asset. So yes, it's a big capital outlay, but the long-term benefits completely outweigh the fact you're spending all the money to start with. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Yeah.
So now I'm really curious what will say and together Maha Aziz here. Maha, so maybe you can start with something about the video we create for you, because it was 24 countries celebrating you.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch, and it really was moving. And I'm very grateful for everybody who took the time to film and say something about me winning. I mean, the competition lifespan is very short, so it makes sense that maybe it didn't reach African students as fast as it could, but I'm really happy that now they have something to maybe motivate them to submit their projects, participate more. So yeah, it's really exciting time for them, and I'm really happy to have done this.
Maha, are you already working on your own projects? Where are you now in your career?
I'm actually, I'm working. I've spent the past year working as a lighting designer. So it's kind of a detour from architecture, but it's still very much part of architecture, and it opens up my kind of expertise in working in urban projects and residential, and much more diverse range of projects. So it's been fun.
That's great. Wonderful. Congratulations again.
Samuel, do you have any questions for our guest? Samuel, can you hear me? We cannot hear you. Okay, maybe we can switch to Ramiro. Hi, Ramiro.
Hi to everyone. Hi. First of all, I want to apologize because my English is not well. It's not so well. But I have a question to the architect Wara. And the question is, how do you manage the materiality of construction elements in areas where the weather is so rainy, you know, in this particular context?
Thank you, Ramiro, for the question. It's pretty much it's how can I say, it's a very important element, the rain, especially like in tropical areas. And I don't come from a heavily raining country or like heavy region, but I pretty much didn't know the impact of rain on architecture before until I actually lived for a bit in a tropical region. That was when I did my internship in Latin America and Costa Rica, and I got the opportunity to work on a project there. Well, actually, rain was a major factor, not only during the process for the design, like to consider the rain as a heavy like component, but also during the construction of the project itself, because while rain is a big element in the project after it is constructed, it is also a hinder for the project construction process as well. So for us, what we considered in the building, the second building that I showed, the hotel in Republic of Central America, was mainly not only the impact of the rain for the users themselves, but also for the experience of the users. While, for example, as you see, we had the windows of all the rooms having shed light shaders that prevent the rain from hitting the glass, while not really bothering the residents themselves, but also the heavy rain on the glass can hinder the visibility, thus hinder the experience of the users of the project. So what we do usually is we look at the component of the rain from the perspective of the users, of the behavior inside the building, whether the project is meant to be experienced outdoors. What does the rain affect the user? If the rain is going to be not experienced by the users themselves, but by the human being inside the building, what does it affect the user? Like, for example, in the project that I mentioned that I worked on in Latin America, it was a urban park, while the rain actually affects the users there. So what we did, we made advantage of the rain, and we implemented it in our playful design, say per se. I cannot show the project now, but I can describe the way we tried to channel through the use of shaping the land, and we tried to channel the water away from the users so they can enjoy the park, while also try to use a special coating, which is titanium dioxide, and make advantage of the rain to actually try to mitigate air pollution in the area at the same time. So this is a way that we try to use. Always look at the rain from a user perspective. If it's actually going to affect the user physically or affect the user on the experience of experiencing the aesthetic of the place, or maybe it's functional. Like, for example, if you're working outside, if you're maybe you can use the water to channel it. Like, for example, on the third project that I showed, we didn't really have that much problem with the heavy rain, but the area was a little bit dry. So what we did is we channeled the rainwater to a cistern underground, so we can reuse that water for like agricultural purposes later. So it's always a matter of looking at what actually the rain is going to affect in the project, and how can we actually make advantage of this, or limit that effect if it's negative. So I hope this actually helped give a perspective about outlook on the, not only with rain, but also with other elements and other parameters. So it's always this process of thought. So if it's whether rain or sun or like heat or maybe other elements, it's always like look at the parameter and try to look on how it's gonna affect the user experience rather than the design and the building outlook itself.
Well, thank you very much, architect.
Awesome.
If I can, I would like to ask you, Mabel, because it was really interesting and to listen to that. You have such a big number of languages in your country. It's something unbelievable. It's like in entire Europe in one country. Tell me or tell us how it's difficult to find a appropriate way how to teach students in such a say plural country to teach them architecture, because you are a teacher. So is there any specific you can join with us, because I cannot imagine, yeah, how is that different at your university to teach such a big diversity students?
I think that thank you so much for the question, Carol. I think it's actually an advantage, because then you have like a wide range of perspectives to solutions. You've not one way, you're not looking just at the Shona way of the, Ndebele way, you've got like different cultures, different backgrounds coming together. But you'll find that, especially when you are kind of like in the African region, it's almost, some of the things are kind of the same. So they kind of merge into one big idea. So that's kind of, the diversity is kind of the same in a way. So it's actually an advantage for us. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Because I think that this diversity, it's an essence of stability. It's a really big advantage. Yeah, I agree with you. However, I have another question for you. I would like to ask, what about, I call it personally, hidden architecture? What about the future of architecture and involvement of the nature into the shaping architecture, or maybe really? I think that it's a future, and I would like to hear your opinion about those approach in architecture, to hide the architecture and to give a chance nature to more be visible. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you look at some of the projects that we are doing and the proposals that we are making, they respect a lot of nature. One of the projects that we are currently working on is in Wange, and the idea is to use only to bring, I think it's less than 20% of materials to that particular site, and the building should blend or kind of be part of nature. So in terms of the color choice, the material use, it's all trying to respect nature. Unless if you're talking about building underground, it's not quite probably what we normally do. We kind of build on the ground, and but blend very well with nature. The building literally circles around trees, follows the slope, all of that in terms of the design. So those are kind of the projects that we are working on trying to minimize the importation of materials to a particular site. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe I would like to ask Vadak, because you are really experienced with the different countries. I have to say that I remember when I was younger, we had a different kind of government, and in that time it was necessary whenever you are building public houses or public architecture, you had to somehow involve a piece of art. Yeah, it was necessary to do it, and you have to take part of the investment to an art, and you should involve statues or pictures or some graphics, something like that. Now we have really modern, how to say, pro-business country. So it's not possible now to ask to involve art to architecture. Can you say that somewhere in the countries you work is still the focus on art in architecture more than in Europe, for example?
Well, actually, this is very interesting, as you mentioned, Carl, but I would rather say not only that maybe more of the, I wouldn't use the word African architecture is going toward like more of a universal like style nowadays, but it is style kind of still depends on the client most of the time. So for example, lately we were working on a renovation project of the Hilton Hotel in Cameroon. And actually, the Hilton Design Committee was really focusing on what you mentioned now is the incorporating art in the design to an extent that they actually devoted a lot of the budget, and they actually asked us to contact with their designers and their artist advisors in a way to incorporate in the graphic charters in the design aspects like things from the local community and from the local culture and art, and even like some historical facts that were actually willing to pay for the artwork of some local artists in order for us to incorporate in the design of the new hotel. So to some extent, it kind of depends on the client itself, because you do understand that always like incorporating art costs a lot of money, and it's kind of a luxury to be able to always introduce this element in the project. So I would actually say it is a matter of the budget conveyed for the project, and if the client actually is willing to go to that extra mile and invest in this kind of things. While also at the same time, there are some architects who are willing to compromise from their own time/budget in order to like invest on more research and more design that is locally oriented to local culture and arts. But it's most of the time, I would say it is about the budget and the client themselves. So for example, if it's a chain hotel, like very famous like Hilton, they will try to invest as much as they can into local culture of each country they're trying to build in. While if it's like a single project for a single client that is like situated in one country, I wouldn't really think they would go that extra on their budget to invest in such a thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Dana.
Yeah, I also like have another question for architect Wadah, if that is also possible, about like choosing the materials and colors. Like, did you choose the materials and colors at the beginning of the project or at the end?
Well, it kind of depends on the context. I would use the term again. So basically, for example, when we were working in a very like tropical / vibrant context, we try and in our research phase to incorporate some elements that try to connect with the context. So for example, in a tropical surrounding, we kind of want to like incorporate some elements from nature. So that's like the use of greenies to the facade and some warm colors. And if we are working on a Mediterranean context, for example, we're trying at the beginning to stick with a very simple / Mediterranean palette, which mainly like use of blue, light color, mainly white. So I would say we don't like necessarily choose colors / materials at the beginning of the design phase, but rather we set a limit for ourselves, like a palette that we try to like to incorporate in the project, and then through the development phase of the project, we will actually start to choose specific colors or specific materials based on the availability or maybe sometimes functionalities of different choices in the design. So we don't really like force ourselves to work with specific color or specific material from the beginning, and thus we believe that will hinder actually the development phase of the project, but rather have options from the beginning, but limited options according to the context on the area, and then work through those options and try to develop and try to actually choose specific colors / materials. Of course, sometimes some clients will come up and like say something specific through the beginning phase of the project, but this is really actually like a very rare situation, because we always try to incorporate the client in our like early design phase stages, thus we can explain actually design choices for them. So it's always like I would say like a specific palette, specific options that we try to choose from the beginning, but then specific colors, specific materials come after the development phase of the project.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to all of you. We, I think, are slowly coming to the end of today's very lovely session and talk. So I would like to thank you all for coming, taking time, preparing your presentation and showing us a little bit of insight into all your countries, into what your projects are. Thanks again for sharing. Thank you to the board for all of you coming and asking your questions. I have definitely learned a lot. It was very inspiring for me, a lot of very useful and very concrete information. So we always like to do our streams about something that, you know, you can take away with you, educative, not just in a very broad context. So I would like to now thank you again for coming. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. This has been the Inspireli Live Talk number 10 with the topic of modern African architecture. And you can rewatch the stream on our website on inspireli.com/news. It will be posted there as well as the other live streams that we had before. And just a quick note, if you would like to participate in the Inspireli Awards, this year it closes in 2 months from now on the July 14th, 2022. So we're excited to see, and we encourage you, not just the African student, but everybody to participate as we have really huge board of our advisors now of the jurors, because we have more than 760, I believe, now jurors who can give feedback, and it is really growing. The family is growing, so we're very grateful for that as well. That's That's all. We also want to thank our partners who are helping us to put everything together, which are Ravak, Rainers, Phoenix, Ecofont Saint-Gobain, and Grohe. They are partners of Inspireli Awards and Inspireli Education, and helping us make this all happen as well, helping us make it happen. So thanks again. Thank you for coming. It was really lovely, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.